They called her a missing teenager. But her story wasn't about getting lost, it was about how far someone could fall under the influence of another person. Someone trusted, someone familiar. Today we explore a story that, on the surface, shocks the mind, but at its core reveals something deeper about vulnerability, manipulation, resilience, and the long road back to oneself. This is the story of a young girl taken not by a stranger on a dark street, but by someone she thought she knew, someone she thought cared. A school security guard kept a teen captive for a decade that blurred the lines between safety and danger, trust and fear. Captivity and escape began like many stories of adolescence. Awkward, confusing, emotional.
Tanya Cash talks about the moment she heard that 911 call in Cleveland that ended 10 long years of captivity for 3 missing women.
I'm here, I'm free now.
It sounded just like me saying that. And the one thing that she said was, I'm free now. I kept saying that, I'm free now. It was so chilling. I had goosebumps and I was crying, and I know what they went through.
Thought to be a missing runaway from McKeesport, police later learned Tanya's school security guard, Thomas Hose, groomed her, then lured her away, forcing the then 14-year-old to hide in his bedroom and go to the bathroom in a bucket.
Life in that house was horrible. I spent 4 years in a closet on Christmas Eve. That'll never leave me. I'll never heal from that. Sitting in a closet on Christmas Eve, that's horrible.
The early years of teenage life are full of upheaval, changes in friendships, identity struggles, and the deep desire to be understood. For one girl, named Tanya, 14 years old, living in a Pennsylvania suburb, those years were made even harder by personal challenges at home and difficulties fitting in at school. She had moved. She felt out of place, and she struggled with feelings no young person should have to carry alone. According to available information, she found a listening ear in someone stationed at her middle school, a man paid to watch the school grounds. A security guard named Thomas Hose. First, it seemed like an unexpected friendship. He asked how she was doing. He listened when she opened up. He made her feel noticed. In a world that felt unsteady, that kind of attention can feel soothing, even essential. But behind it lay a dangerous shift, subtle and unseen at first. What started as conversation soon turned into something far more manipulative. School. Hose would pull her out of class under the guise of support. He gave her attention and gifts, building a connection that slowly eroded her sense of where safety truly lay. On one day in February of 1996, after catching her skipping class, he kissed her, crossing a boundary no adult should ever cross with a minor. That moment marked the beginning of a decade no one close to her could imagine. On that day, Tanya left her home believing she was leaving with someone who cared for her, someone who promised to offer her refuge from the things that hurt her in her life. But what she found in his house was a life unlike anything she or her family expected. For the first years of what would become 10 years in captivity, she was not permitted to leave his upstairs room, a bedroom transformed into a prison. She slept, lived, and existed there. She was kept away from bathrooms, meals were brought to her, and her world became the walls that surrounded her. It was a confinement that stripped away autonomy. A captivity built not by physical chains, but by psychological shock, threats, and emotional control. She wasn't free to determine her own movements. The world outside became a whisper she could barely remember. And in many ways, the inside became her entire universe. But for 4 of those years, she was almost completely hidden. Then, something shifted. After so long, her captor began to change his approach. He gave her a new identity, introduced her to his family as his girlfriend under a false name, and allowed her limited time outside the house. But she was never truly free, only ever released into a world still controlled by him. During this time, she managed to get a job at a nearby convenience store. She met people who knew nothing of her life story. And what may have seemed to be small moments, conversations with strangers who treated her kindly, glimpses of normal life, began to chip away at the mental grasp her captor had on her. Little by little, she started to piece together something that had long been buried beneath fear and control: her own identity. She realized that the life she had known wasn't real freedom at all. It was captivity disguised in fragments of normality. It took courage, unimaginable courage, for her to speak up. One day, at that job, she broke down in tears and confided in the store owner, revealing that her life was not what it seemed, that she had been held against her will. That confession changed everything. Within hours, the authorities were contacted, and the decade-long captivity finally came to an end. Imagine that moment, stepping out of that house after 10 years, walking into daylight after a missing chapter that no one knew how to fill, reunion with family, reconnecting with a world that had changed, rebuilding trust in people who once seemed distant or unreachable. Was an instantaneous healing. Escaping was just the first step. The journey forward has been something she had to craft with intention, strength, and time in the years since. She has spoken openly about what happened to her, not to relive the pain, but to illuminate how manipulative trust can be, how vulnerable minds can be misled, and how important it is to build systems that prevent such tragedies. Her story has become part of a larger conversation about grooming tactics, the subtle ways in which adults in positions of authority can exploit trust and access to children. It's a discussion about boundaries, awareness, and the responsibility of communities to protect those who are still growing into themselves. Some reports suggest her family struggled to fully understand her experience after she returned home. And there have been complex personal journeys within her own relationships. That complexity is a stark reminder that trauma doesn't resolve just because captivity ends. Healing is neither linear nor simple. She wrote a memoir sharing her story and advocating for others navigating trauma. She married, built her own life, spoke in schools, and used her voice to encourage healing, not just in herself, but in others who felt silenced too long. Her experience has also inspired a film, bringing wider attention to what can happen behind closed doors and challenging audiences to think about the unseen dangers that can lurk in places we assume are safe. As we reflect on this story, it's vital to remember that behind every headline, there is a human being, someone with dreams, fears, scars, and strengths that the world may never fully see. Captivity didn't define her. It was a chapter she survived, but survival is different from healing. It's different from peace. And yet, through deliberate effort, she continues to build a life shaped not by her past suffering, but by her resilience. Her journey reminds us that support matters, the invitation to speak, to be heard, and to recover. It reminds us that awareness of grooming and manipulation can prevent future harm. And it reminds us that compassion should guide our response to victims, not judgment. What does it take for someone to break away from psychological control? How does someone find hope after years of darkness? And perhaps most importantly, what can each of us learn about protecting and empowering young people in our communities? These are not easy questions. They don't have simple answers. But her story encouraged each of us to think more deeply about them. Today, she continues to use her voice, not just to share her experiences, but to help others recognize when comfort has been manipulated into control, when trust has been twisted into dominance, and when freedom must be reclaimed one day at a time, because no one should ever feel alone, unheard, or invisible. Her name is Tanya. Her journey has been difficult. Her survival is a testament to strength most of us can barely imagine, and it leaves us with a powerful question. When faced with the darkest corners of human experience, how do we choose to bring light instead of silence? If this story made you think or feel something deeper, take a moment now to reflect. and consider what lessons we can carry forward to protect and support one another. If you found value in this video, or if it made you think, feel free to show your support by liking the video, subscribing for more deep dives like this, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below, because every voice matters, every story counts, and every conversation we have shapes the world we live in.